Thirdphaseofmoon.
Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. Blake Cousins here. We've got a special report for you tonight. We've got some incredible evidence that's going to blow you away in regards to, is there a possible base on the moon? Has an amateur astronomer captured it on his telescope? Plus, Bruce Bradley, a person that is a hobbyist in regards to capturing craft from Nellis Air Force Base, including jets and everything else that's going on over there, but he also captured something within his lens that needs to be looked at over very closely. So we're going to be going into depth in regards to some of this information we just received right here at Third Phase Moon. We've got the panel with us, Rich from GoofOn and Michael from Dark Hour Paranormal. We're going to break it down right now. We're looking at a series of photographs captured by Bruce Bradley, and he was over there at the Nellis Air Force Base, and this jet just came overhead, and he noticed something after looking over the photographs of something bizarre, anomaly. He doesn't know exactly what it is, but we're getting a close-up look at it, and it is definitely something there, and it's very bizarre. So let's just start it up with Rich from GoofOn. What's your thoughts initially on these photographs?
Initially, my question was he really over Nellis Air Force Base? I was just trying to think, where is this guy at that this thing may be a balloon? Of course, that's my first reaction. And then we see the close-up of it when you zoom in, and it's not quite balloonish, if you ask me. It's kind of sitting there, acorn-shaped, that has an edge that goes around pretty much like the center of it, and it's rounded. It's kind of like an acorn bubble. It's really interesting, and why would that be over Nellis Air Force Base? So I really took the balloon equation out of it because of where he was at when he took the shot. And I'm aware where it is, but how high above the craft, how high is it in the sky is a question that I need answered. But it looks like it's within range, that it's in focus enough that it's really clear. So it's a clear photo. When you see the one that's in front of the nose of the jet, it's pretty wild stuff. I think that's a legitimate UFO.
You know, we're looking at it, and it is amazing when we're zooming up close on it. I added some brightness contrast and actually sharpened it up a little bit so you can see this plasmic edge around it. Almost seems that it's aerodynamic in its way of flight. But what's interesting is we got a second photograph. I'm doing a side-by-side comparison of the two frames that Bruce Bradley captured. And you can see the object behind the jet as it passes over. And then the object becomes a little blurred. And in my opinion, it's probably the afterburners or just the jet itself, the exhaust behind it, blurring the image behind the craft, the jet. But what is it in the sky again? Do you think it could be possibly some kind of secret military asset? Michael, what's your thoughts here from Dark Hour Paranormal?
Now, you both bring up really great points involving these photographs. It's interesting now, assuming that this the submission is genuine, which I believe it to be, especially looking into some of the very specific information he gave us in the way of, what camera he shot it with, the aperture, the lens, and everything, so that we could kind of cross-reference that. Here's somebody who shoots up to 400 to 900 shots of these jets every day, okay? And he happened to pull two images out of 439 on this particular day that we see this anomalous object in the sky. Now, I noticed, too, the difference right off the bat between the two photographs. The first one is very clear, and we can get much better visuals while looking at this and make a more of an interpretation. And yet in the second one, it's much more blurry. Now, that being said, I thought maybe this craft is either moving really quickly to only be caught in two frames, or the other side of this is perhaps it is a cloaking device and it's coming in and out of existence, and he just happened to catch it in that exact moment. I'm curious if he had noticed this while he was taking the shots. He doesn't really mention that. But, when we're looking at the first picture here, it actually looks sort of like it's glowing. I don't know if that has something to do with the sun's reflection, but it also has a bit of a transparency on certain areas of the craft. To me, I can kind of see this odd green glowing nucleus sort of on the top. Again, I don't know if that's on the exterior or, again, if this is actually transparent. But overall, it kind of reminds me of the classic Billy Meyer saucers. So that's really interesting. And, last but not least, I like to say about this at the moment here is that the jet in the picture really gives us a perspective as to how far away this may be and where it kind of sits in this wide open environment that it's in. Very fascinating catches. And for somebody who says he believes that UFOs are real 50% of the time, the person who shot this here, Bruce Bradley, that's pretty significant.
Absolutely, Michael. And what's interesting, too, is that this guy's a hobbyist. He captures, like you said, 500 to 900 images a day while he's out there just taking pictures of these jets over the Nellis base over there. But what's interesting is these secret projects that come to mind, like Project Aurora. Have you ever heard of that, Rich? Doesn't it kind of look like that to you a little bit?
Yep, it sure does. It has that same angular shape and design. It could be the Aurora craft, just an updated version some 30, 40 years later. It's pretty wild. And to just add on to what Michael said about the other picture where it's behind the craft and the exhaust, it does. I didn't think about it until we started this conversation, but maybe we caught it in the middle of a dematerialization and just going in and out of existence or cloaking, instead of it just being the exhaust blurring out because of the heat of it, blurring out the UFO. So that's one thing that is very interesting about that. We may have captured something dematerializing as it's happening.
What's amazing... Go ahead.
It could be an Aurora craft. It could be an Aurora type craft, definitely, to answer your question.
So I got to ask everybody really quick before we get to the next incredible evidence in regards to the moon and possible bases captured in incredible imagery. But let's get to the question. Do you think the pilot itself maybe have been aware of this craft in such close proximity? If it even may have come up on radar? Was he in pursuit of it? What's your guys' thoughts on that?
Honestly, I don't necessarily think that he would be aware of it. I think he's more focused on flying. I mean, you mentioned radar, which is something it might pick up on. That being said, if he is, he's probably been debriefed at some point to say, or how to handle some sort of situation like this. That being said, again, we don't really know what is manning this craft or this object that we see in the sky. It's very possible that we sit on the extraterrestrial end and we can say, all right, perhaps that they're monitoring our military flights, or they have some interest, as we've all spoken about before. Or, a theory that's really becoming much more solid is that we actually have this technology, and perhaps they were doing some sort of surveillance or monitoring flight in respect to the jets that were there. Two totally different types of craft, of course, and perhaps observing each in the same space, maybe there's something to that. I mean, we don't know how this object is propelled, and to know that would answer a lot of questions that we have right now and bring us into a place where we could ask more appropriate and distinct questions. But, this is really interesting. It's really interesting, man. I think this is a legit UFO here in these photographs.
Rich?
Just to add on that, let's go back without getting into all the details of what happened in 2004 with the Tic Tac and the 2015 Tic Tac events. They were talking about being watched for 2 weeks over the Catalinas, in these stories, that these UFOs that look kind of like this, but were Tic Tac shaped, so they say. This could even be a form of a Tic Tac, just could be the angle we're looking at it, or how fast it's going, if it's moving at all. I don't think the pilots were aware at this time, but what if they were? What if they were? This is like just training, and they're trying to somehow figure out how to take out this craft. Maybe they're using their radar, I don't know, guidance systems, trying to lock on to this UFO, and the UFO could be playing games with them, just like they did with the Tic Tac. They were following it around and saw it go in the water and making these crazy maneuvers and going supersonic, hypersonic. So, we don't know why that's there, but it could be part of the war games that we're practicing with UFOs, or maybe just doing it on our own to see what we can keep up with.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to say the war games. some experimental aircraft, some experimental exercises going on with something that's unknown to the public at the moment. But who knows? Maybe we'll be seeing this here soon with the Space Force being implemented with its 1 year anniversary. Maybe they're ramping it up. But now let's get to this, guys. We've got something that we received at Third Phase Moon. It's something that we thought was smoking gun, and we thought we need to revisit this again. What's going on in the moon? Are there secret bases on the moon? These photographs from an amateur astronomer named William Bennett submitted these incredible photographs to me in regards to something that's hidden within the crater, but in reality, it's not even hidden. It's in broad daylight. It sticks out like a sore thumb. We got something that is so unexplainable that, in my true judgment, it proves that there's something going on in the moon that is not explained at this moment to us. And I got a feeling NASA knows about it, but they're not telling us because they would have obviously seen this huge structure popping out of the crater itself. So again, this is incredible stuff. Buckle up, everybody. Let's start it off with Rich. What's your thoughts on these images from William Bennett?
Sure, great capture. I remember this from a year or two ago, and I thought it was extremely important because it brings up a lot of questions. Why is this object out where everybody or anybody who has a telescope can take a picture of it? It's like they didn't even care that we could see it. Or were they misjudging the timeline, because it looks like it's going into the dark side, you know, as it's drifting off and spinning around. Or does it on that part? I don't know. Does it go into dark mode over there?
Yeah, I think William wanted to capture it, and he was going to come back to it a month later because it takes that month cycle for it to reveal itself, and the shadow was coming over. But yeah, he was able to capture it before the shadow of the Earth hid it from us, and it wasn't there a month later.
But why would they? What was so important that they had to get that UFO up and ready? It also looks like it's sitting on something, some sort of device that can lower it into the crater or bring it out, or, you know, hide it, do whatever. Because it is strange. It's got sort of like a golden orange top to it. It's like the dome of it, or whatever it is. It's there, and they weren't afraid to take it out of the box and show it. That's for sure.
Absolutely, but maybe they didn't realize that there was an amateur astronomer on the ground that had such a powerful lens and just got lucky enough to film this on his camera, because we don't know how long or how long this stayed in a visible way. Maybe it's, like you said, retracting below the moon's surface, but maybe that only lasts for a few minutes, and William was just lucky enough to capture that. Dark Hour, first impressions on these photographs.
I'm certain that they're aware of, you know, what lenses and telescopes are available for public consumption. It wouldn't surprise me at all to know that they have every spec in what's possible. I have to agree with Rich. The first time I looked at this, I thought, man, they are brazen. Here this thing is just sitting out there. It's clearly not part of the environment, from shape to color, probably texture too, if you were able to get close enough. But, you know, initially, again, my thought was, you know, this is just out in the open, and they made no attempt to cover it up or, you know, conceal it in any way, knowing that there is a possibility that somebody could see it. I mean, there are many amateur astronomers out there and people who watch the moon on a nightly basis, and, you know, they're taking very strict notes. So, you know, this is interesting, you know, looking at this. If first we see it's a red ball object in the middle of this crater, which has some sort of base underneath it. And when I was looking at it out of the corner of my eye there at the first, I thought maybe this is some sort of radar dish, and realized that there was a shadow being casted over the crater, but still can't rule out the possibility that something like that might be underneath. That ball kind of reminds me of the top of a transmitter. I know I've used that word a lot lately, but that's what I've been seeing. So, you know, if this was ours, again, we didn't do a good job covering it up. So it lends to the possibility that maybe this is something else, that it came from somewhere else. Now, again, there's a lot of speculation in perhaps where the moon might have originated from. Some people are convinced that, again, it's a satellite of some sort. Could we be witnessing something from, you know, the age of them actually putting this planet together and then putting it in orbit? Maybe they had some sort of technology. My point is that it might be something before our time that we're looking at and not necessarily attributed to our work, but it's curious nonetheless. This is really, really awesome.
You know, let's back it up a little bit and maybe think of the possibility, because there's one frame that William captures that makes me scratch my head that maybe it's not one of ours. Maybe NASA had no idea what's going on underneath the moon itself. Could it be biological? Because in one frame, there's something that's sticking out of the same crater a couple days before, if I'm not mistaken, that appears to be almost organic, green. Are you guys seeing that? You see that, Rich?
Yeah, I do. It's weird. It looks like some sort of maybe spray or something was. Maybe we caught it just after the object took off, or maybe it's some sort of protective shield that goes around that area to protect it from the elements. And, you know, when they land or take off, it's still resonating in the area for a minute. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. Never seen anything like it. But that greenish hue is kind of weird.
When you look at green things, in my opinion, it almost resembles like organic life, like a blade of grass, or almost kind of like a flower blooming or a bud of a flower. Could this be possibly just something major in an organic biological life form, where we see the green sliver and then it kind of buds out into this orange bulbous state? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Michael?
I wasn't even thinking that way. That's wild. That would be a first, and the last time we've ever seen something like that.
Yeah,
nobody's ever captured it. Nobody's ever captured it before or after.
No, and you know what? We don't really know. I mean, who knows? There may be some sort of organic life that's even on the moon that's in some sort of gaseous form, or perhaps they're, you know, microbial in respect, and we're seeing a big pocket of these. We can't rule it out, you know what I mean, because there's so much in the way of the microcosm to be studied, especially on these long-distance celestial planets that we don't have daily access to. But if this isn't an artifacting from the camera itself, and this is actually in the picture, the way that we are surmising, it's absolutely incredible. And, you know, we've said it all before. We are the disclosure. It's people like William Bennett who, you know, are doing these doing this type of research and bringing it out, and we're culminating, you know, all of these different bits of evidence that just really point to one direction.
Absolutely. And what's crazy too, it almost reminds me of like the UFO or the James Bond movies, Moonraker and things like this. But this isn't like science fiction. This is science fact. Photographic evidence of what showcases something within the crater in both photographs, and it actually emits a shadow on the crater behind it. So you can see that this thing is there. It's representative. It has a geometric shape, like you say, that it almost seems like there's a base on it underneath, and this plateau of this transmission type device. It's just very bizarre, and I got a feeling this is, well, I gotta say, this is the best footage of any kind of evidence of a moon base. Last thoughts, Rich?
It's one of the best things I've ever seen on the moon, and even you want to go to Mars, it's one of the best things I've seen, you know, comparatively. So yeah, it could be something either maybe living under the surface and popping its head out, or maybe it's just a UFO we saw and this gentleman captured, Mr. Bennett, and we just happen to see it, and we're seeing maybe something green. Could be biological. I don't know what it is, but it could just be an artifact in the lens. I don't know. I think we see a UFO. I think it's legit. I think it's one of the best things we've ever seen, if not the best, on the moon.
Michael, a structure or a UFO? Last thoughts.
I really think it's a structure, although I can't rule out the possibility of it being a UFO. I would just look to see if we saw anything like this in the future, because like Rich, I could sit here and say this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this. And, you know, the clarity that we have on this picture, it's not, or, you know, the whole video here, it's not just an artifact in the archaeological sense. We're not looking at something that, you know, we're swapping the word pareidolia around with. This is something defined and within the environment, and it seems to have intelligent structure to it, which, of course, the implications of that are very far-reaching, and you know where we're going to reach when it comes to that. It's either us or it's another form of life that's doing this, or maybe we're working together. But yeah, my final thought on this is that it's definitely a structure. It's clearly there in its environment, and it's very odd that we don't see it sometime later.
Absolutely. And I want to confirm, just after these photographs were submitted to us over here at Third Phase of Moon little ways ago, immediately we were capturing or receiving other photographs from other astronomers of the exact same anomaly. But I have to say, William Bennett's photographs were the best, but they were actually confirmed from other amateur astronomers that there was this thing hanging in the crater. So whatever it is, it's not there now. That's also, you could go check that crater again. Maybe it might come back. Let's hope so. And if you captured anything amazing in regards to these anomalies, you know where to send it to. Third Phase of Moon. I want to thank Rich from Goof On for joining us, and Michael from Dark Hour Paranormal. Everybody, keep your eyes on the skies. Be safe. Blake Cousins. We'll see you next time.